So, dude, thank you guys so much for doing this. For anybody who's watching, this is basically, we did a podcast last week with Chris and Ghost, and then Putz a little bit at the end of it as well. But basically, this one is kind of more geared towards PD. I'm like really excited for this because I want to hear like basically like just kind of the insides of like leadership of PD, all that kind of stuff. And then you know, cop to crim stuff from your guys' perspective. All that good stuff. So it'll be cool. If you guys have any questions in the chatter box at all, you guys can go ahead and type exclamation point Q and A. It's with like the little and symbol A, and you'll get a link there that you guys can fill out some you know, like a form that'll send in a question. That'll be the best way to do it. Just so you guys can like you know, ask questions. It's easier for us to go through there and read that versus like maybe you typed a question like early on. I understand we got like from like, you know, maybe like an hour to two, like hour and a half kind of area for you guys. Does that sound about right? Or
yeah,
that's accurate.
Perfect. So I'll try to keep to that and make sure that we're going, because once we get talking, it's just like that time flies by. So so perfect. I have a few like talking points and stuff like that just to kind of guide us, or like just like topics that I like to cover and stuff like that. But this can go kind of anywhere, anything that we kind of like start going towards, and we might just like drop some of those and go towards that. And then we'll leave some time at the end for questions and whatnot. But how I like to start off is like kind of you guys just share like who you are, maybe your character, and if you want to, you know, even share a little bit about your character, how it came about. It's totally up to you. But I think we just kind of go on my screen. We'll go top left to right. So we can go with Asionic. You first, yeah.
My character is Chris Morse. I'm the current chief of PD. You know, little backstory to my character. It was literally my first character I joined in on PMA, first RP server. I actually did that wasn't menu based. Me and my brother joined the server and kind of just went from there. I started with the legal part of stuff as a lawyer, and then eventually transitioned to PD roughly about 2 years ago.
Good deal. Nice, dude. Legal side of things, huh? Was it different back then or no?
Oh, 100%. Back in the like old days of PMA, being the only lawyer in the city, you had every crim knocking down your door, and if you didn't support them in court, they took you to the beach and just shot you in the head.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
That's pretty. That is pretty bad. They're like, hey, I got arrested because I shot somebody else in the face. Can you protect me? You're like, not really. There's not really much I can do. And then you're dead.
Yeah. Got to the point where Dale Denton came up to me and he said, "Hey, do you just want to join PD?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna arrest these dickheads."
Good deal. Samo, dude, if you wanna go give a little intro.
All right. I'm Sam. My character is Adam Archer. I originally started on a crim that was in the Russian mob. I decided to try the PD side of things, ended up liking it, stuck with it. I think I joined the server like 10 months ago or something like that.
Good deal. Oh, dude, you're actually around when I joined too.
Yeah, our SSN is pretty similar, I think, because I used to interact with you on my other character at
Oh, yeah. I was actually really funny because I didn't even like recognize that you were an archer for like a long time. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, I literally didn't remember.
I remember.
But yeah, so badass, dude. So 11 months ago. And then you mainly play archer now, right?
Yeah, I don't even touch my other characters really.
Good deal. All right, Hank, the one, the only.
Yo. My name is Hank. I play Captain of the LSPD, John McClane. I think I joined PMA maybe a month or two before you guys as a crim main. Kept doing the whole thing with the cartel, and then that kind of disbanded towards, you know, the beginning of me joining PD. And as I joined PD, I was enjoying what I was doing there more than what we were doing at, you know, on the crim side of things. And it kind of just went from there. I never had any intention to, you know, really main a cop. But I really started to enjoy it. You know, interacting with everyone that's in the city, that is, you know, on the criminal side or even on the PD side. The variety that I was able to get out of RP was, well, I thought it incredible. And yeah, just like Samo, just like Moore's, or Asionic rather, PMA was my first RP server. I was going through a couple of them on FIVEM, like, all right, this looks good. Let's see what this is about. And ended up sticking around.
Yeah, that's badass, dude. Because PMA was my first one as well. I had seen like other people play it, but like I mainly watched Zappity Zap play it back in the day. And like when he first started, and that's what kind of like I was watching. A lot of people had told me like, hey, you would really like RP, and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like it. I'm like, I don't think that's really like my thing.
Not your cup of tea.
Yeah. I just really thought that wasn't like, hey, this isn't really my thing, and I don't know. Once I tried it, like the first day I tried it, and I tried it like not streaming, it was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, this is my thing, and it was a lot for like PMA, like the entry, like I don't know if it was just the moment I came in or what, but it was just like very helpful people coming in, and it was like back when Job Center was like the old Job Center, or where it is now, but when it was like that little room, you
that corner. yeah.
Do you remember? Dude, that little room used to be so crazy. I remember one time I walked in there, and it was like a sea of just like no eyebrows,
Danny's.
bald, just like a sea, dude. I walked in, and I was like, oh, all right, I'm just gonna not. let's just not do it, dude.
I remember as a rookie, I wasn't even staff, and as a rookie, I'm just standing in there. I'm like, what is this? How are we? Like, this is what you guys got to deal with. This is crazy,
Dude, it was like real heavy, like for sure, really heavy. I think how we have like the new stuff now is pretty damn good. Okay, by the way, this is completely off topic, but is there a way to like put on eyebrows and stuff like that when you first spawn in now? Because like, I feel like there's not. I make a whole bunch of different characters, and every single time I have to run to a freaking barber shop, and I think I'm doing it wrong. That's what I think is happening, but yeah, I don't know.
There might be. I don't know. I haven't created many characters other than on my test server. But when I'm doing that on my test server, I don't really create.
Yeah, you're just like slash barbershop or something. Slash eyebrows or something. Oh, we do.
That makes me question if there's one.
No, people are saying there's still new one, because I like go in there, and then I run all the way past like Pillbox and like all the way up. It's like crazy, but yeah. So okay, cool. I think dude, hold on one second. I gotta stop these people from zooming in and time warp filtering their face out. It's just ridiculous. It's like the worst. Okay, hold on. Okay, 1 second. You guys are awful, by the way, all of you. You guys need a, I don't, you know what? Screw you. You guys can keep doing it. I don't care. All right. So, the first thing I kind of want to open up, and it's like a huge conversation. Okay.
You ready for this? Yes, Paul. Dude, you can't do it.
All right. Now we know we got to do it, because now you've just encouraged everybody to use channel. Jesus Christ. But the first question that I want to the first thing I want to talk about is actually the
state of PD right now. Where do you feel like PD is at right now?
I'll be 100% real. I think it's in a really good place. It's definitely been in darker days. I've seen it go through chiefs that were there for 2 to 3 days, and then they disappeared for like 3 weeks. Overall, I think it's improving. Is it at the absolute best? Probably not. But there's definitely always room for improvement. The current state that it's in, I know me, Archer, and McLean are all kind of transitioned from 10-8 RP to more of a meeting-based RP, attempting to get everybody on like the same line of thought process and everything like that.
Yeah. So when you say a good spot, like what does that mean to you? Like what is like a good spot? And that kind of stuff.
Recently, numbers and stuff like that have actually improved, and overall personalities within the PD. There's definitely a lot more. And that's one thing that really makes me happy is when I come to PD and it's not just, okay, going 10-8 for the 3rd day in a row. It's people actually looking forward to clocking in. They have their buddies on duty that they, are really, really excited to actually clock in RP with those people, and with those people branch out to even more. And that's the one thing that I like to see within PD is the actual character development aspect. So it's not just, cops are a supportive role, right? They're actually developing their characters and going on to the line of interacting and finding more friendships and partnerships throughout the PD and the entire city as a whole.
Do you feel like, and anyone can answer this, but do you guys feel like the game mechanic side of things
supports that for cops at all? Like, do you guys feel like that actually supports like
cops RPing more, or do you feel like the whole of how every single robbery they have to be on, like every single robbery people have to be on? Do you feel like that kind of takes away from, I guess, the I don't know, I guess the RP side of it, where they can do some more things like that? You know what I mean? Like sometimes I feel like it's created to be a supportive role because of how we run things.
That's what the whole 10.8, 10.7 system's for, right?
Can you expand on that? Because some people might not know about that.
So 10.7 basically just means you're occupied. 10.8 is you're ready to take a call and go to another call. So if you're doing something, whether it even be just grabbing food from one of the restaurants, you just 10.7, and that makes you not available. So like the various things like the banks and grocery stores that need a certain amount of cops to hit, you won't be able to hit it unless there's a certain amount of cops available to just basically go to that call already ready.
Okay, perfect. So you feel like that kind of allows for, for maybe longer scenes, or someone to be a little bit more investigative in their, their cop RP, or, kind of just anything for them to create within that.
It helps with it.
Yeah.
Right. The other side of that coin is the number of cops that are clocked in at any given moment. The more cops that we can, us three can get to show up to the city on a consistent basis, that gives other individuals within the ranks to also go out and do maybe, not bank work or not robbery work, go in and do more intricate RP scenes. And then they can transition out of that and go 10.8 or be back in service and respond to those shots fired calls or those, bank calls when they want to. But all of that, it's, there's no single mechanic that affects it.
Yeah.
It's a larger picture that is painted with our numbers, our actual game systems, and our designs. And then, of course, the individuals that are clocked in at any given moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because just starting out in PD, coming in super fresh, you kind of start to see you see how there's kind of, I feel like almost you can put cops into two different areas, right? There's the cops that are at every single call, or on the call, whether it's robberies, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And then there's cops who are they're kind of, I would say three buckets, to be honest with you. There's the cops that are on every single call. There's the cops who are kind of maybe doing more the 10-11s or the traffic stops, that kind of stuff. Maybe some more side kind of things like that, along with the calls. And then there's a lot of cops who are there to RP with the other cops, right? To talk with other cops, or maybe they got really good friends with other cops. Maybe they hit some calls, but a lot of it's the camaraderie of being there and just being able to talk with the other cops, right? Which I don't think is necessarily an awful thing. It means you're kind of creating a place where people can, build friendships. And at the end of the day, it's a video game, so it's about a community type vibe, but I think it kind of I would say those are kind of three areas where I've kind of noticed people fit into. But I could see why maybe the cops who are going to every single call feel one, they're not getting enough backup. Two, they're not, other people aren't doing as much as them. You know what I mean? And then on the other side, they're man, this guy's a real hard ass. Why does he want to be so serious about, I can see how there might be some of that duality in a way. Have you guys noticed that at all, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing that we all went through, growing through the ranks a lot more, was seeing the difference of people, right? You have, like you said, the people that respond to the calls. You have the people that sit 10-8 and, interact, mingle, right? I think the main goal that us three have been trying to find is getting all cops on like an equal balance, right? You have your time to do investigative work, interact with other people and build those friendships. But there's also times in the city where, you do need those cops 10-8, right? You do need those cops, going to scene to scene to scene, right? Because some of it, can build up to bigger scenes. And that's the one thing that I've been trying to stress to a lot of cops is, setting 10-8 all day, it can be fun, but also spend a little bit of that time actually developing your character.
Yeah. So do you feel like PD's, because do you feel like it's at a place where you can have like a considerable amount of cops like doing that, but the city's still running where, crims can still do the stuff that they got to do, like robberies or, drug missions or those kinds of things. What have you guys noticed on that end?
During prime time, usually when we have like 20 plus cops, you can get the best of both worlds, right? You got the 10-8 cops that want to do their scenes, and then the guys who want to do the more slow burn investigative stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really does depend on time of day, which is unfortunate and something that we're trying to work to bettering, but that's just the reality that we have to live in, Well,
I mean, like, how do you really like better that though, right? That's a very difficult thing, I think, to better, right? Like, because you're just kind of waiting on people who are like high quality people, like are like our peers or like high quality cops or whatever is what I mean by that. But to come in at that specific time as well, So that's probably a very very difficult thing to find. And would you say the staffing side of things is almost like the hardest piece of like your guys' jobs and whatnot?
That's a hard one.
Hey, go on.
The main issue that I run into with doing it is the mixture of having, the constant meetings with people, but also trying to sit there and, have, me, Adam, or Hank actually respond to those scenes and be the people saying, hey, you need to sit there and start pushing. You need to sit there and start putting aggression on these people. I don't know. It's one of those hard things to balance, especially in the HOD positions. Yeah,
that makes sense. Absolutely. And I've kind of noticed that, like, because like on calls, it's like it can get really crazy, right? And so making a lot of those like higher up calls or like making a lot of those things when like higher ups aren't around, I've seen even just like through like today I was on a call and it was like just like a wall of comms, like from different people and from just like you're like. I think we were even like, okay, we're off this chase. There's enough people handling it. It seems like enough cooks in the kitchen, And I think when it comes to that's one thing for me that has opened my eyes a little bit to like the criminal side, for like coming from the criminal side to like cop. That's one of the things that has opened my eyes a bit of. Where you're like, okay, so you're getting a lot of different personalities together, a lot of different people together, and expecting them to be at high quality communication levels on a consistent basis. But then on top of that, on top of that, serve the RP scene well, right? And those two things are almost like separate things because like the communication side of things is like actually just for the cop side, right? Like doing well on that side of things and like getting like a well-oiled machine and that kind of stuff. But then on top of that, trying to serve the RP situation well, where it's not like you're like dunking on the criminal or like you're making sure that people are actually like RPing and not like I don't know,
not just getting that arrest. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I guess like, what are some of the ways that you guys are trying to combat that, or like make that better and better, or is that kind of like something that's on the forefront of your guys' mind or what is that looking like right now for you guys?
If I'll go, you guys want to take? Yeah, I'll go first on mine. It's difficult from like a character standpoint in the city to say like, hey guys, maybe, like you missed this shot or something, right? Because at the end of the day, that like doesn't really make any sense for a captain to say, you know what, maybe your aim is a little too good here, right? So in character, the way that I like to combat that is, hey, if you're getting yourself into a sticky situation and you've got no backup that's coming in, it's okay to detach from that scene, right? As a character, as a cop, as a human being that lives and values their life within the city. If you are seeing yourself pushing into something that is not wise for you to, back off of that, right? And let them go. We're going to reset. We'll get another chance to arrest them. Because the moment a criminal gets away, they get an ego, and then they say, fuck it, let's run it again,
Yeah.
So that's from like the in-city perspective of it. Or the discussions themselves. Now, when I lead a scene, or when Asionic or Samo leads a scene, we'll make calls that might seem counterintuitive. But at the very minimum, it's to serve a purpose of, hey, let's give them the W here. Let's take the L, or let's kind of ease the bit of pressure on that pressure cooker that's building up, and then we're going to just run it back again, and we'll catch them on the next time. Because the whole thing is, like, at the end of the day, when a criminal gets away or they give the slip, that's a fun thing for a crim to do. And then they get to chat with their buddies like, oh yeah, you know what? We were in a chase with McLean, and this idiot didn't see us whatsoever. We just made a quick right turn, or we went up a goddamn parking garage, and he didn't see us whatsoever. Right? That's kind of a fun story.
Yeah.
And it gives a sense of accomplishment, win, and progression. But it's difficult for us in character, in city, to say, guys, let's dial it back.
Yeah.
Because there are cops and there are people, or not people, because it is also fun to catch a criminal. Like,
oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Let me. I'm not going to mince words whatsoever. I play a cop now. I like playing a cop because, let's be honest. I catch maybe less than half of the people that run from me. And when I do get that arrest, like that's our fulfillment, our us having fun as well.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to tell an officer that's within the ranks, or a deputy within the ranks, to be like, hey, ease off, because if that's how you're having fun, that's that is fun, and I don't want to discourage people from playing their character the way that they are.
Yeah. So. And I think that's a really good mentality, right? Like it's like you say, it's really hard on both sides, right? Because when I was playing Crim and kind of not that I was like a leader of like a gang or anything like that, but kind of like a leader of a group, like doing some heists and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You kind of work into it, where I would have to work into it. Like they're like, okay, yeah, we could go straight to that vehicle swap. And we could just head straight there, and we could go do this vehicle swap, and then we'll jump into this Lamborghini, and it'll be sick, dude. It'll be like this crazy thing. And I'm like, so guys, yeah, that would be great, but what if your Lamborghini gets shot up, man? That would suck. That's a lot of repairs, or something like that. And it has to start becoming like this thing where we would be like, hey, if we're gonna do a vehicle swap, we started to put risks involved for us. So the route that I would take, I could 1050 or crash on that route, so that it's a risk for us to even get to that vehicle swap, And I think in a similar way, that doesn't really make sense, from the Crim's perspective, right? Maybe it makes sense to get some distance or something, but it makes more sense to be like, oh, let's just hit it and go boom, 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 and then win, But working that in is such a great way to make for a cinematic experience, for one, in my opinion, and also make for a really fun experience on both sides, whether there's a winner or not. And I think that's something that I've always appreciated. When I've had really, really good situations with cops when playing Crim, is it feels like they served that situation the best. Sometimes I can tell they were they lost us, and it was oh, they lost us, because they chose to lose us, which was kind of okay.
What's the fun in that?
Yeah, they saw it was a huge plan on our end, and it was this thing we had worked on for a long time, and Air One somehow didn't see us go past, or something like that, and it was that was a really cool moment, or even we got caught, and it was a really fun experience, versus it being oh, you guys suck, you guys got dunked on, that kind of stuff. And I think yeah, I just think on both sides there definitely needs to be more of thinking of that, at least, right? And it's something that I think as a cop, it's now coming in as a cop is something I want to focus on a little bit more. It's just like that idea of like, oh man, that's a really cinematic thing that they're doing right now. Let's let them have that. Because also from a viewership experience, like from my perspective of like from like the viewer's side, right? Too, they want to see like longer chases. They want to see things
absolutely
that are panning out and are fun for both sides. And so, yeah, absolutely.
I want to touch back on something you just said. You know, I think it's absolutely okay for criminals to dunk on cops. I know that's like, you know, controversial take, because you guys as crims risk so much more, or there's so much more on the line, right? There's time, there's money, there's investment that you guys are having to make. And that relationship between cops and crims, I personally, I mean, from a, you know, an individual standpoint, I don't like it when cops are showboating that they caught, you know, a criminal in front of them. That's something that bothers me a lot, and that's something I think we've done a good job of removing from the current roster.
Yeah, because there was a couple times where, like, I know it's jokes, you know, like, but there's sometimes where you get caught as a crim, it's a bad situation, and then the cops are standing around your dead body, and they're like, you know, they're like, oh my god, like, we just absolutely destroyed this guy, you know, and you're just sitting there like, you're like, yeah, I mean, you shot out every single one of my tires and then lit me up inside of my car. That was pretty dope, man. You know, like, and you're sitting there and you're just like, this is just, and it's like a joke, and, you know, but kind of not, you know, or like, you know, someone pulls up, you know, that same thing happens, and then you see their like license plate and it's like, get dubs or something, and you're like, okay, you know, like, all right. I mean, that's cool and all, but I mean, when I'm sitting here and just got dunked on, it kind of does suck a little bit, you know, to see that, or, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like some of those things that crims and cops like don't, you know, those little intricacies that they don't think about, for sure. I think, personally, I think the state of police is definitely in a lot more positive place, than before, you know, and I think that's, it's definitely like, it's always a leadership thing when that kind of thing happens. It's, you know, it rises and falls on leadership. And so I think that's a huge tip of the hat to you guys for sure.
It's really good to hear, man. Like, I can tell you right now, me, McLean, and, you know, Archer, busting our ass.
You guys are, man.
You know,
absolutely.
even when we're clocked off, we still shoot each other's messages, and we're like, hey, you know, anything that needs to seriously be worked on, like, let's get that shit worked on. Because right now the PD's having a small issue with like trainings, right? You know, trainings are a huge factor in like a lot of progression for, you know, a character's part, right? But you know, some of the time it's that even balance and, you know, responding to calls and also developing your character that may apply to, you know, stuff like that. And sometimes it just gets way out of hand. And that's the one thing that we've been struggling with for a little bit is, you know, in character and out of character, just like, okay, what's our next step? Because I'm lost.
Yeah. What are some of the things you guys feel like aren't going well right now?
Aren't going well. I don't know. I honestly, the one thing I could say isn't going well is, you know, the standard of what happens with PDs. You have, you know, new cops coming in, and it's the one thing that I've been pressing, you know, as Moore's on other cops is like, hey, you know, limit yourself. If you're not limiting yourself, and, you know, I think you can even agree to this to some standard, is you have to basically set yourself to a schedule and hold that schedule while clocking in, right? Because if you clock in and you're 26 hours into a shift, well, the next 4 days, you're going to be like, I don't want to touch it. I had way too much of, you know, the RP that day. So then, you know, you kind of go inactive, and then you come back, and then you're playing a huge game of catch up, and then your character's behind. And on top of that, you're just mentally like, there's too much bullshit for me to deal with. It's so much easier to go do something else. And the one thing that I've been really trying to hound on, you know, McLean and Archer in characters, like, hey, start bringing these people in with good RP quality. Like, if they're killing it, like, just bring them in. Because, you know, for instance, at first I was a little iffy, and I was like, I don't know. It seems super SPS. But then I had, you know, Kiro called me in character, and he goes, hey, I got another good one for you. And I was like, okay. So then I sent an officer up there to go pick you up. And a couple days later, after hearing, constant good stuff in character, I was like, okay, just bring him in. But it's the constant struggle of trying to find those cops to bring in, keep numbers up. So we have the supportive of, we have the support of active PD patrolling and also those people building characters.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a hard balance, right? And even for me, like bringing in this particular character, like, I didn't even know, right? I honestly thought I wasn't going to make it past the first day at some point, like I was like, I just don't know if this is going to be a thing. That's kind of like a little bit of like how I'm trying to stretch myself with some characters right now, is just like really try to create something that's just a little bit different and stretches my own creativity. And with a particular character, I was just like, I don't know. We'll see if it, we'll see how the reactions are to the character as a whole, and, that the first day, like for that with Kiro, was like, it just kind of like settled it, right? Because Kiro does such a great job in DOC. It's actually insane. And brought that character in and kind of like helped like take some of the more memey sides off of the character and kind of trim some of that fat. And then like send it through, I think was a really cool, just like a really cool dynamic. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to like finding good RPers for PD, it's hard, right? Because when you take away your good crims from criminal, you leave actually a huge hole right now within our small community, right? Like when like good like high level criminals who are just good RPers and like aren't like raging or that kind of stuff, like, and you take them out of the crim role and then you throw them into the cop and then they really like it, play cop for a long time, and then neglect the crim, it like actually leaves a hole on the other side, So
yeah, there's a vacuum that's created.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of like this weird balance we're in right now, because we've got a lot of people playing the server, right? But the community is still very small. I don't know if you guys feel that in that same kind of way, but. And so when you lose like one like high end character on either side, it's just kind of a huge hit for sure.
There's that, and there's also, at least from the cop side of things, the amount of investment and time it takes to train somebody that might just end up quitting in like 2-3 weeks after they get the rank of officer.
Yep.
So that there's that balance as well, right? From a real world perspective, the man hours that it takes to get somebody to function as a cop in the city, that's like an actual investment too, and you never know if it's going to work out or not. So it's hard to, at least in my opinion, Asionic or Samo, you guys might have different opinions on this. It's hard to judge out of the gates how someone is going to be until, they're like a week or 2 weeks in minimum to see what they're at. That's why the rookie phase is, it's meant to weed out and be difficult, or at the very, another way to describe it is the rookie phase for cops is for a character to shape the type of person that they want to be, right? Or the character that they want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, having cops or crims go over to the cop side or cops go over to the crim side. Yeah, there's always going to be a gap, but, I don't know what the alternative to that is.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's just a consistent, and a lot of where I think the issue lies is within, like overall, like people finding things to do consistently. Cause I've noticed that even on cop, right? Like you can just go to the calls and you can just do that. Right. But if you're not like making those calls like different and making them creative, because there's so much opportunity for like you to RP so many different scenarios on a daily basis and on a daily basis. And you, like it's actually like for me looking at it right now, I'm like, man, there's so much that I could dive into like from a creative standpoint. But also there's a lot like on the other side, not only like crim, but there's a lot like just not even game mechanics. I'm not really even talking about that conversation right now for crims and civs and stuff like that. But just the idea that the world is your oyster. Sometimes people get overwhelmed by that. And I think a lot of times on cop as well, they start going, oh, it's just about going to calls, I guess. So I'm good,
Yeah.
And they just quit. And
100%.
And and so I think it's an interesting conversation on that side of things. I try to stray away from the idea of like, oh, people should RP like this, like X, Y, and Z. You know, I think it's by nature something that is just so different person to person. But finding things to do is probably one of the hardest things for people. And that's something like I picked up on with the last podcast with Chris. Was just like he's like most people just don't know what to do, you know, and that's where sometimes they think it's game mechanics or they think it's the server or they think it's like whatever, and then they go and try different things and it's not really that, you know.
100%. And the one thing that me, you know, McLean and Archer have been pressing is like, hey, you know, you can respond to calls. There's 9 million possibilities, right? So you have to sit there and actually engage in the scene. You know, it's not, you know, just go to the scene, win the scene, go back to 10-8, right? Because then, you know, it's the one thing that I've always said on my cop is make it a two-way street. You can't just drive down the center of a two-way street and tell everybody else to move, because then everybody else is going to be unhappy. You have to find that equal medium of like you drive one side, they drive the other. There is no strict, this is how you RP. So you always have to sit there and, you know, be dynamic. You have to adapt to other people's styles, you know, as you grow as a character and as you play cop.
Yeah.
Because there is just no one true outcome.
So this is gonna be a good conversation. Could get a little bit controversial. Okay, so it's gonna be fun. What do you guys think the state of crims are from your perspective?
Honestly, it's really not bad. There always is going to be, you know, a couple bad, you know, scenes that happen, but you know, it's the one thing that I've been preaching to a lot of the crims as my cop is like, hey, you know, just because you have one bad scenario, don't really appropriate that to the entire populace of it, right? Honestly, I have a lot of really good scenes with crims.
Dude,
even as
you're
chief.
absolutely
So there's
insane.
a lot
Thank you
of
so
really good
much.
stuff that
Thank
comes
you,
out of
thank
it,
you,
and
thank
there's you know
Jesus
a
Christ.
couple bad scenes that may happen here and there, but overall, I've personally enjoyed the state of a lot of the crims.
What do you think? What do you think, Hank?
It's kind of a difficult question, right? You know, the easiest answer that I can give is I really don't know. It's kind of how are people reacting to things as they're on their crims? Because, right, I have my own perspective, and I haven't played a crim in who knows how long at this point. I would like to think that it's in a good spot, but I'm sure that, you know, on the criminal side of things, that's not how it's viewed, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at this from a different lens than the criminals. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, I don't want as a person that plays a cop character,
you,
I
Joe.
don't want
Make sure you guys
us
follow
as
Joe.
cops to be
Joe's
relegated
a
as just
badass, all right?
props
Follow him.
in the server, or as you know, cops being treated as game mechanics themselves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do understand, you know, the difficulties that comes with being a criminal in the city. So to answer your question, I'm hopeful that it's the ship is turning into a direction that is beneficial or fulfilling for the criminals. But at the same time, it's always we're always going to be correcting our course. It's never going to be, hey, we're going to set ourselves to 180 degrees and we're going to go straight ahead. It's always going to diverge.
Yeah.
And for us in HOD, it's, you know, we have a top-down view of how things are, and we're essentially just turning knobs and adjusting levers, right? How can we make everything healthy for the city, essentially, not just the department? So, I mean, I think, you know what, this is a question more suited for you, actually. Where do you believe it's at? How do you think it is now that you have, you know, a week of being a cop under your belt? You know, what
so
are you
everything.
seeing? Yeah, you're definitely a veteran at this point. But right, we're seeing it at it from our perspective, and our perspective is, yeah, we have frustrated criminals that come through, that get processed, and then there are other criminals that just are having a great time. And I don't know what causes one person that's playing a crim to absolutely love what's happening and then another one to just hate it.
Yeah.
Maybe hate's a strong word, but be dissatisfied with the interaction or the way things went down.
Well, something that, and this is completely like obviously my opinion, and obviously anything I say is really my opinion, but I can kind of explain it best in like explaining like a timeline for a criminal and how that like the life cycle kind of works, and how that kind of works for me personally. How it worked for me personally was I didn't want to work any like job centered jobs. I wanted to like live a life completely in the criminal world, right? So that means like pretty much only making dirty money at the beginning. Like I didn't even want, I went like kind of a little bit extreme with it. I didn't want to like sell like weed to the pawn shop. You know, I didn't even want to like do any of that. I wanted to like actually do the criminal jobs. And so, most of the things that we could do was like, robberies. You could do like, sorry, I got to move your guys' names around really quick since Archer timed out, I think. But yeah, so basically like most of the things that we could do were sell like drugs, maybe get weed from the weed door, you know, sell drugs. We could you know, chop up cars, which a lot of people don't even really do most of the time, maybe because it doesn't pay out at all. But also there's also the stealing of cars, like car boosting is what we call it. And most of the time, I would say probably 8 out of the 10 times, the car boosting is it scuffs out, so you don't get a, you know, it doesn't work. It's not like something you can really RP around. It's just like it just breaks. You know, you can't turn in the car, you can't really do anything, and so you pay money to get into that, and it breaks. And then house robberies, I haven't done them in a long time, so they might be all fixed up now. But every time you do them, they would almost every single time that it would like be like super scuffy, right? And so what everything kind of pushes towards is doing like the robberies if you're not going to get rich doing like lumber, right? So in all reality, it kind of started becoming like for us, like the point of the characters were heist characters, right? And that's like the group was going to be like a heist group, and that was like the point of it. And so you get to that point of where you start to learn everything and spend months learning everything, and then you start doing those robberies. And I think for me, where it got a little bit where I was starting to get kind of frustrated was the fact that that was looked at as a negative, doing robberies, like doing, you know, a considerable amount of robberies, when really there was nothing else that we could like actually do, right? Like obviously you can always create something, create a scenario and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of the criminal life is centered around game mechanics, and that's just kind of the reality of it. And so there wasn't a lot that we could do other than that. And I think that's probably what a lot of crims are feeling at times, is when that happens, and then when they get punished like with a whole bunch of months because they did the only things that they can really do, it probably like sends them down like a path of like, you know, it's happening again, and then they start putting cops into a compartment of like every cop is just like this, or every cop is like that, you know, or they have one bad experience, you know, their tires get spiked right when they leave a place or something, you know, or whatever. And that's just kind of like, I think where there's like this disconnect where people think that there's so much for crims to do, but there's just, I would argue there's not, in my opinion. But with that being said, in RP, there's always something to do. But if you guys play it for long enough, and that's something I think there's been with an issue, not like an issue, that's a very like aggressive word, I would say, but it's been something that I think PMA is working on, whether they know it or not right now, is what happens after you've developed your character? Like, what do you do then? Because building the character right now on PMA is very good. Like when you're building your character and like starting to learn how to get to a certain point, it's amazing. Yeah. But once you hit that point, what do you do now? And that's something that I think PMA is very much struggling with right now, because I've hit that point multiple times on different characters, and it's very hard to jump over that hump where you go, oh, so what happens now? And you've got, you know, maybe your character's good at certain stuff, or has the money, or has the whatever, has the things. There's not a lot of like new updates to things consistently to where it keeps things interesting on the criminal side. So that's a long answer, and I'm sorry about that, but that's kind of
it's a good answer, right? It's one thing that You know, I know all three of us have been, you know, doing is, you know, trying to see from the criminal's perspective on everything, right? If a bank or a store robbery goes entirely shitty, you know, we're kind of there to sit there and be like, hey, you know, it kind of went bad on their side. Like, let's try to lighten the load off. But it's another one of those things, like McLean said earlier. It's kind of hard to say in certain scenarios where, you know, it went really bad for the Crims, and you know the chase is still going on or stuff like that. Be like, hey, you know, lose this scenario real quick, right? Because then it's kind of hard to portray that to some officers on why, because you know it's one of those things where you're in the moment. You know, some people like to win, other people are, you know, it's role play, right? You know, there's 9 million different ways to role play, right? And having that situation where it's, you know, kind of like, hey, back off, you know, step on the brakes. I think I was in a scene with you where I saw, you know, the Crims completely getting destroyed, and I was like, hey, give them some breathing room. Like I flat out said it because, you know, I was like, go for a pit, and then they started, you know, slamming into a wall, and it was like, okay, give them a little bit of breathing room, guys. Like,
Yeah.
they still need that chance. And I know it's one thing that we've really been trying to stomp on. We've stomped most of it out for the most part, is, you know, getting the cops that are just instantly going to aggression and slamming the Crims out and royally pissing them off. We've dialed them back and explained to them why, you know, stuff like that does piss them off, and why, you know, bad scenarios do come out of stuff like that. And overall, I think it's going to a better state. I may be entirely wrong, because yet again, you know, as McLean said, coming from my perspective from PD side, I really only get that side of the, you know, the perspective. Seeing from both perspectives is really hard.
Yeah.
Especially when, you know, our main goal right now is to keep PD, right? If I go over to Crim side, you know, then that's me neglecting PD, and, you know, balancing the two is already, you know, doing that on top of PD would be really, really tough.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You guys have so much. Yeah, and it's kind of like it's hard because most of the people who make decisions on the server right now are in PD, right? Like, and it's hard to kind of grab both sides when you see, like, you know, demon hours consistently or like whatever it is, you know. It's really hard to grab both sides of that, and I think that was something for me where, like, there was one thing in particular, and this is like just something that was like the bigger thing for us when we were, you know, more consistently playing Crim, was like the shooting out of tires, right? And the reasoning behind, like, where we were like, okay, why are our tires getting shot out when we like maybe swap in from like a slow ass local vehicle to like a Sultan, right? And the reasoning we had behind that was more of like, hey, you guys have like 3 cars that are there, you know, and ready to follow, or like ready to be there, but decided that everyone's getting out of the vehicle, you know? And it was always just like conversation with the cops. Sometimes I'd even have in the cells, is just like, hey, like, we put hours into our plans, you know? Shouldn't on their side, and for one thing, the shooting of tires has gotten like so much better. And I think it's a good thing. I even noticed that the other day, where we like ended up following somebody versus being like, oh, shoot their tires out immediately, you know? And I think it's something that has gotten like, that was just more of the idea of, let's create a good experience for not only people like playing, but, you know, eventually, like, when more and more streamers pop up for PMA, the whole watching experience for everybody as well, because there's going to be a time when PMA has viewers that want to just watch the streams of the streamers and want to see the high end role players, not only streamers, but even just see the high end role players in the city, and they want to experience that. Even on the Crim side, when you just jump into a supercar and drive away, it's really not that cool. Like, you know, it's really not that big of a deal. And so, yeah, that's, I guess, for me, all of those things kind of culminate on the criminal side. And I think they push into, and then you have a bad experience with somebody, and you can personify all the issues that are there already, you know? Yeah. You're right over there.
One McLean's out here hopping in air one.
He's like, I'm just making a quick smoothie, guys. Don't worry. I'm just going to make it quick.
Yeah. the one thing I do see, coming from PD side is, and the one thing I've been stressing to PD, right, is most of the time what happens is, it pents up, right? It's not, talk it out in the cells. It's okay. I'm just going to be quiet the entire time and let it build up. And then eventually it builds up and then, the person explodes. And when they explode, it doesn't look the prettiest for either side, right? Because then that person explodes. And then every once in a while, you'll have that chain reaction of, now the person that they were interacting with then explodes. And then, you have two people exploding, and having those people in the background to sit there and be like, hey, check, you good, man, reel it back. Let's reel it back to, reality. Let's take this serious. Is the one thing that I've been stressing a lot with cops. And, the whole tire popping was one of the first changes that we did, because when, me, Archer, and McLean would run around, it was like, okay, why are you going that aggressive? There's no need to do that.
Well, we were trying to push it towards we wanted to do a court case, because we're like, oh, like you're shooting in our direction when we haven't shown any sign of lethal force, And so we wanted it to be this cool thing. It just never really got to that point. It's
one of those sticky situations with PD, right? Because, it's awesome to have, a 10, 20-minute chase, right? But then you got to think about, the same situation. And this is kind of where the cops came from, is like, okay, well, we're interacting with you and doing this chase for, 10, 20 minutes. Well, what about the next set of, that next set of criminal group that's trying to do the next robbery or something like that, having that next scene? Well, now we have to sit there and balance that. Hey, well, we're busy with this scene, and we'll try to get to you as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, the aggression amping up slowly over chase kind of comes in. That's why we pop tires and stuff like that. It's not just, hey, fuck you, get the chase over. It's,
no.
Okay, we need to kind of reel this into an ending point so we can get to the next group.
Yeah. That 911 call, help. I'm getting lumber. We got to help those people out too.
Yeah. No, and that's something where I think, when I was talking about like game mechanics, not really like supporting some of those, like, maybe like longer like RP moments or chase moments. For me personally, I think sometimes with the robberies, it's like we have this setting of like every robbery needs to have cops at it, right? Like every single store robbery has to be responded to. And for me, sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, are the game mechanics where, like, the Fleekas, if they were around and you could only hit them one time per, every like 4 hours or something like that, or, or if the different things were around where like it started to get set up to where cops technically like didn't have to be at every single like store robbery, or technically, didn't have to respond to every single thing. Could there be more time allotted for, for longer chases or longer things? But I've just noticed that where it's like, oh shoot, we got another 1090, and it's like, a store with like a 10K dirty payout and like maybe a fake ID, or something, and it's like, I don't know. It's just something. It's an interesting idea, because I've noticed like on other servers at times where they like put a timer on like stores, or they put a timer on like Fleekas, or they put a timer on whatever,
I think it's kind of what you're hinting at. What you're touching on is some of the changes that are going to be coming to PD, the way in which we get our calls even. I don't know how much I'm like allowed to talk on it, so I'm going to just keep it very vague, but our system is getting overhauled, and I think some of what you're talking about is going to be addressed in that. And additionally, some of the call chasing itself is going to be addressed by this change in, or this complete overhaul of how PD dispatching works. Of course there's gonna be calls where we have to go to them, right? If it's a Rockford 90, or if it's a jewelry store robbery,
makes sense.
We're gonna have to go to that. If it's a big bank, we're gonna go to that. If it's a Fleeka, we're gonna go to that.
Yep.
But yeah, the importance of those calls and the ways in which they are made available to us is gonna change. And hopefully that brings in, the balance change that you're talking about, or at least hinting at right here. And again, I don't want to talk any more on it because I don't know how much of it I'm supposed to share, but I think we're going to be doing that shortly, but again, not official whatsoever. It's just kind of in the works.
Dope.
Yeah. I completely lost train of thought.
No worries. I'm gonna kind of switch gears a little bit.
All
I
right.
want to talk about, in particular, jail time. Where do you guys feel like jail time's at? Like, do you feel like it's in a good spot? Do you feel like it's too much, or do you feel like it's not enough? Do you feel like it's too much? And that's very general. You know what I mean? I know it's like a very flexible thing, but yeah, where do you guys feel like jail time right now is at?
Recommended
It's
or what people actually get sent for.
Yeah, I guess you. I mean, you can open up on both of those things for sure.
go ahead, Archer.
I mean, a lot of times the recommended, it depends on how many charges you've been putting on, right? So if you're just like charge stacking, it's going to be a high recommended. I mean, pretty much go lower than that. Me personally, I kind of sentence based on the interaction, like how good it was. If it was a bad interaction, they're like OC molding, I'm going to hit them a lot harder, obviously. But if it's an overall pretty good interaction and everything went well, it's convenient.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one standard that we set for most of the cops. Is like, hey, you know, does it look like they had fun? Does it look like you had fun? Did you enjoy the scene? You know, was it overall like something they planned, or was it something where they just went, okay, as soon as we get out of the store, blast every cop, and that's it. We're winning this scene, right? And then, you know, once you arrest them, are they, you know, sitting there popping jokes with you, right? Are they, you know, sitting there going, this is absolutely stupid. You guys are power gaming and stuff like that. And, a lot of those things we try to teach during the rookie phase is like, hey, you know, this guy was super cool about it, right? He may have took the L, but you know, he's still sitting there talking with us, interacting with us. And in that case, you know, you want to dial it back, bring him to the point of like, hey, this is good action, you know, reinforce it with positive stuff, right? You know, we're going to drop your time, we're going to drop your fine. And it's kind of us saying, hey, thank you so much for actually having that really, really good positive interaction with us. And I think that's kind of the way that we've tried our best to push PD towards is you have a good interaction with us. We reward you by going, hey, you know, here's less time, here's less fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
What would you say the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Overall, the time and fine, there's no real solid answer. It's basically just it's a really dynamic system, right? It all depends on the cop. Are they going to charge you for unlawful discharge and fleeing and eluding, or are they going to charge you for, you know, kidnapping, right? It all depends on the exact cop itself.
Yeah.
What would you say the average amount of time somebody is sent for right now, based on like your guys' interactions and whatnot?
Based on my interactions, you know, as of right now, the Moore's character, he's pushed more into the scenes where it's starting to get super serious. You know, they need somebody to sit there and say, you know, here's the tough call, make it, do it. Overall, though, I'd still say my average sentence time, going from, you know, people that are speeding in Legion, including those, I'd say I'm roughly about 50, 60 months.
Yeah. You guys feel pretty similar to that, or what do you guys feel like?
It all depends on like what they're doing, right? Like if they're just in a car shooting class 2s at each other in Legion, there's not a whole lot you could really book them for. But if they're doing that over and over again, yeah, we'll just override the recommended and send it, because they really shouldn't be getting out of jail and going right back to doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to, you know, as McLean, kind of the easygoing cop, I guess, is, you know, he's got a couple of red flags or red zones that I will just full send it, right? If I see some sort of unacceptable behavior, if a criminal is being a nuisance to be a nuisance, that's when I go hard on somebody. But if they're, you know, like Nick Ander, if he is robbing a bank because he's a criminal and it's a good chase, everything is fine, it's like, no, I'm not going to go hard on you, you know? But I will go hard on the people that kind of clog up the city systems. And what I mean by that is, you know, pillbox or robbing EMS or taking EMS hostage. That stuff I don't go easy on. from an OC perspective, it's like, hey, you are stopping city functions. But from an in-character perspective for McLean, he's like a lawful good guy, right? Like he has to put down the hammer when it comes. So yeah, I'm kind of the same with Asionic, where a majority of my times and my fines are low. Times are around the 50 to 70 month sentence, depending on what it is. And then, we can't really go too easy on like the bigger heists, like Big Bank. Like we can't go easy on those. But it's really situational, and fine.
What does not going easy mean? Like what does that mean for like? I don't really care about fine, to be honest with you. It's more like time is more like I think of what most people worry about.
So it's incredibly rare for me to sentence somebody above 200 months. That's something that I just don't do unless it's egregious or it serves a story purpose, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's somebody shooting up or be general assholery around the city, Legion, Pillbox, MRPD, I'll still go for 125 to the 160 sentence. And it's difficult for us to make that split decision because, hey, we may have just come from another scene right at then. We are also judge, jury, and executioner right at that moment. And it's really how are we feeling, which it's kind of difficult for us to quantify right at that moment.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, I'm not going to yell at a guard dog for barking, and I'm not going to get mad at a criminal for being a criminal and doing what they're supposed to do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that like full transparency, I actually started kind of feeling like, and it could be like totally misunderstood, all that kind of stuff. But I honestly started feeling like on my crim, like some cops like out of city were upset that I was doing crime. I legitimately started feeling that way. And it's a lot of it kind of started being the reason why I didn't play crim as much, is because like I would be at the start of my stream, I would go do like a car boosting, right? Mm-hmm. And I would get out of there and I would get like 120 months from a chase. And you're like, okay, like, I mean,
what was the point of that? It's just,
Well, and it's like just car boosting where I get like 10K dirty, And I'm sitting, I'm like, dude, now from my perspective, which I mean, it shouldn't necessarily be taken as like a higher thing and for like streaming and stuff, but like now I've got to sit there for like an hour and a half, just like speed running Sprunk, or like an hour, like speed running Sprunk or something, And when it's like, oh, just RP in jail, it's like, I mean, come on, I mean, really, you can sometimes, but it just really, most of the time it's pretty dang dry. And like, I started thinking like, wow, like I think people are like actually upset that I'm doing crime consistently, but I'm trying to create scenarios for people in this world, and bringing different people on these jobs and bringing different things going on. And, it just kind of really got to that point where it was just like, I'm not going to spend like this long in jail on stream anymore. Like it's just not where I think things should be. And I couldn't imagine, like, I always like use the analogy, like I couldn't imagine someone who works construction all day and they can play a PMA for like 2 hours, maybe at night. It's one thing they look forward to as they're roofing in the heat or something like that.
Yeah. And then they got to be in Bolingbroke.
Yeah. At the end of the night, they get 250 months for like robbing something. And then they, cause for me, I was getting the lesser time than what most criminals get, like, because there was accountability, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
and what it started becoming was like I would hear people getting like sent for a mask for like 500 months or sent for like 200 months and I started asking like cops when I would get sent, like, do you understand like how long that feels, is what I would say. I was like, you understand how long that time feels? And it's like, they're like, yep, see ya. And it's like, okay, all right. So I guess I'm going to be in here for like 2 hours and just in this jail, I guess, this video game jail, I
mean, first and foremost, I want to apologize for, that interaction in and of itself, right? The yep, see ya, take it easy, take a hike, right? It's something that all three of us, I think, are trying to fix. And it was a much easier thing. I mean, shit, even as a sergeant, it's like, no, guys, I'm here to interact. I'm here to talk with you, right? I don't get to do that as much as a captain because I don't get to sit in on processing of criminals as much. It's a slow turn in the way in which we're trying to get it done. Now, if you're, the next question that you're going to ask is, well, why can't we make it universal? Because we don't really know what the payouts are. We don't know, right, as cops.
Yeah.
What your end goal is. And now for a rookie or an officer, let's say somebody that's below a supervisor role, to give, I'm not going to say just you, but any criminal a lighter sentence, they might have the feeling, and this is something that we're trying to stamp out, is, well, if I don't go hard on them, I'm going to get yelled at by my superiors. And that has been a thing, right? Luckily, us three in this call right now, we have the luxury of saying, I did that because I did that. It doesn't matter. I went easy on them because that's my right to do so.
Absolutely.
But there are lower ranking officers, and especially rookies, that are afraid of going easy on somebody because they might get berated or they might get put into this mold of, soft on crime type of a person.
Yeah.
So that does exist also, and that should be, something to be mindful of.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not saying that there should be bigger sentences and things times for that and stuff like that. And I get that. The hard part, it's hard when you start to feel like it's personal, and it's like, oh, you think I'm doing too much stuff. And to me, it started being like, well, what does that even mean? What does that mean I'm doing too much stuff? Because you start to see okay, so would you rather me just not do anything? I don't know. That's just really where the conversation I started having with with people was just like, okay, so what do you want me what do you want me to do exactly? What does that day look like for you? And that's where it just got to a point where it was like I just wasn't really in a good headspace with it, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna take a break for a little bit on this side and want to see the other side of it, and see where that's coming from. But and I think it's something that I've always said this, that I experience the lesser point of it, like I say, because anytime I'm most of the time when I'm in the city, and doing stuff, I'm streaming, and people might recognize my voice, not because I'm some famous streamer or something like that, but because they just know me in the small community that PMA is, right? And I think they might know that there's people watching, and people are gonna, there's gonna be comments about what just happened there, and maybe I get a little bit less time. But when my friends would come back, when I would come back the next day, and they're like, "Oh, hey, I just got done doing 500 months," and I'm like, 500 months has got to be something that you just blew up the whole goddamn city. You know what I mean? And
I don't understand why anybody. I don't know what they would have done to warrant a 500-month sentence. That in and of itself is kind of ridiculous. Obviously, context and devil's in the details, but that's just something that is, I don't want to say unacceptable without knowing the full context of it, but that shouldn't be happening as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I know. Sorry. I know sometimes it does happen, and it happens when everybody in the city is starting to hound down on PD. I know there was an issue a couple nights ago where it was literally just everybody running around Legion Square, shooting each other and just, blasting each other for shits and giggles. And then I know at that point,
well, in my opinion, though, that's that's a moderation problem, right? That's something that was more of hey, if we need to, if there's people who are continually just coming into a popular place and breaking people's immersion by just lighting it up consistently, that's a moderation problem. I don't know if that's a problem of we need to jail them. I've always been someone who's I don't think we need to use jail time as a moderation tool. I think we should have a conversation with people, that's more where I come from, but I think it's also because I haven't been a cop long as well and seen those hours consistently, so I don't know, But
it's with the Legion Square, what Asian is talking about. Yeah, that makes sense, right? That's the ratty no RP type of sentencing that needs to be done to cool the city down and cool the cops down. From your perspective, I know you and your crew, you guys aren't shooting up Legion or holding up businesses, but So, just to flip the script a little bit, I think there's opportunity there, from an RP perspective of, hey, bring in DOJ.
Yep.
Right. What happened here? How can we expand the network or the web of our interactions? Yeah, you guys got, or your boy got screwed for 500 months. But let's bring it to light. Let's shine a light on it because, hey, maybe he's lying to you.
Yeah.
Maybe he just been doing some shitty things, and that's what he did to warrant that as well.
That is definitely something that has happened to me before, where like someone tells me like a piece of the story and they didn't tell me, they went ape shit on the cop or something, like they didn't mention that part, but I think, I just think it's a lot of power to have to like lock somebody away like that in the video game, right? It's like, it's just a lot of power to have. And there's not a lot of checks and balances to it. And speaking of DOJ, it's there, but it takes like, you've got to push harder than anything else. Like you would literally have to make your whole life that
just
role play for the next 3 days in order to even get a court case, right?
Gotcha.
And so like for me, like I've tried multiple times to do a court case on cops who I feel like have given excessive time or use excessive force. And even for me, right? Somebody who's streaming on the server, and I know a lot of people on the server, and I even know like staff on the server, I can't get a court case. And so like, I just highly doubt that there's going to be someone who like, who's in the trenches, who's wronged. And that, it just doesn't happen right now. And that's okay. Cause it's just kind of growing pains right now. But, it's something to look at, and it's something where for me, with my cop, I'm not afraid of being seen as someone who's like giving lesser times for things that I feel like aren't really that big of a deal. You know what I mean? I just think I want the interaction to be served the best possible. So if someone's like playing a character that's supposed to have more time, then yeah. But I don't know. I say that now, being like a week into it, and I could be completely jaded, week 2, and I'll be only giving 500-month sentences. But
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah, but just from the crim perspective, like anything over, in my opinion, over like 150 months for like the normal stuff that people do, is a lot of freaking time, and it really kills the flow. Like first for the stream is what I always think about, but it's not only about that. It's about like people's like time in their lives too. But it just kills the flow of everything. Your friends start to like fly out, and then all of a sudden now your whole day it just puts a wrench in the whole day. So. It's just something to think about. I think where cops, sometimes they hit that button and they don't remember that there's numbers between 50 and 100, right? Like they don't remember there's like, 75 months. There's like, there's like 85 months or something like that. And so, it's just something to think about. And I think it's going to be always a conversation that's out there. And it's something I'm passionate about too, because it's people's time, something that like the most valuable currency they have, So, let me see here what else we got on our list. Okay, jail times. I think we're kind of getting to like a later place here, so we'll probably move on to like questions if you guys are cool with that.
Up to you.
And everything like that. I feel like this has been great so far. Is there anything else you guys want to go over before, or like bring up before we go into like kind of like the later half of like just doing questions and stuff?
So a quick question for you while you get set up on the next part.
Yeah, go ahead.
In your personal experience, starting as a cop coming over from the crim side, what's some of the major changes you've had to make to your overall RP?
Now, like actually like getting to like arrest some people and stuff like that, or like have conversations with people, I can tell that there's a lot of animosity like towards cops already, like right when you come in, and that makes sense, right? Like it's like crim to cop, and it could just be the RP side of it, but it really does feel like just out of city like frustration overall with some crims, and I've had to be very creative. I'm like the opposite, like just not a fan of when I've got to do anything that's like remotely out of city and city. I just the style of person I just hate it so much. It just like ruins everything for me. So like anytime I got to be like, like even hint at things out of city, in city, I just hate it. I just like makes me cringe. And And so I really try to like make them realize like this is going to be a different, it's going to be a different interaction, right? Like, and whether that's like where somebody would normally take somebody to jail, I'm going to make them do something else, you know? Like I've been like recently just doing like fix-it tickets on some people where they've got to send me a picture of their car that they fixed it when I pulled them over. Cause I thought it was suspicious what they were doing. I pull them over, try to ask them some questions. I'm like, okay, well your hood's gone. So you're going to have to send me a picture of that or else we're going to put a warrant out for your arrest. If you don't send me a picture of it that you got it fixed or something, just like goofy stuff that kind of like give somebody something to do in that moment. So I've kind of had to like tweak my RP a little bit to where I'm still fulfilling like where they're like, I've got a hint to them that I'm not going to dunk on them in this moment. And I want to hit, like throw that bone out to them. Like, hey, let's RP, you know, like, let's have this interaction. And on the crim side, sometimes you have to do that, but most of the time it's just like everyone's like ready to RP together. But crim to cop, it's a very difficult thing to navigate. And, it's just going to get more like harder and harder as I go. And so that's something that I've had to switch around a little bit. I normally try to stay away from like those kind of OOC type things in character, you know, like, and that bridges on that, like teeters on that for me. And so, yeah, I guess that's the piece that I'm kind of having a hard time navigating. But also I'm not a person, I don't like drama, like in the sense of people getting pissed off at me. I really don't like that a lot. It's just my personality type. And so that is something that's difficult to navigate as well. And just kind of continuing to RP through that moment is a very difficult thing to do. Personality type for me, I can do it and I can handle like conflict and I'm very good with handling conflict. But when somebody's like pissed off at me, it's hard for me not to want to be like, hey dude, it's just, you know, hey, it's me. I'm not trying to piss you off. You know, it's hard for me to not want to do that. Yeah. Okay. First question. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is your opinion on the FIB? Are they cops?
So the huge thing that, talking to Chris, aka Eduardo in character, they're in a sense cops, but their main focus right now has kind of been, hey, assist the PD in the places that it needs, right? Their main goal isn't to sit there and be cops. Their main goal for them is to branch out their RP and, have their RP. But the second that, Moore's in character goes, hey, Troop, need you. Cops are struggling. They're reeling it right back in, helping us for that time until they have that free time to sit there and branch out. So in a way, yes, but at the same time, no.
It's a supportive role for the PD. Like they're there to help when we need them, but also they're there to like facilitate gang RP and a few other things. It's a facilitation role, essentially.
Okay. Good deal. There's another question. Is CID SWAT Special Divisions going to be a thing? Question mark.
Okay, which cop wrote that?
That's definitely. It literally says Timors from Dean.
God damn it, dude.
Is he trolling you through that or what?
Yeah. It was a huge part of my campaign for PD. My whole thing was in the past, CID, SWAT, all of those special divisions have always pretty much failed within PD because it's gone too much click, right? And once you hit that point of too much click, nobody else is allowed into even touch that little circle. As soon as they do, they get backlash and then it's toxic. Yeah. So that was a huge part of my campaign. Was no, it's just going to be where the captains are going to grab a person. They're going to say, hey, go find your team. Come to me with your team. I'm going to give you a mission, and then that's basically how it's going.
That was one of my turnoffs to joining PD was the click things that I would see like when I would watch other people's streams. Like just like it felt very clicky, almost like a high school type of vibe. But like at first when I saw it, it just kind of felt that way. And over time, I started seeing that like dissipate quite a bit. And I was like, I just think it's a good time now as I'm jumping in. I think it's not that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's been one of our main goals, to kind of destroy the click based of, this is the only people I'm going to interact with. And we've kind of sat there and reinforced, like, hey, see that rookie over there? Go have that conversation. Who knows? Might spark a nice little friendship. When PD starts getting hounded on by crims, I literally send out a PD announcement. I'm like, hey, at this point, all PD needs to double up, find somebody. The worst thing that could happen out of it is you form another friendship.
Absolutely. Okay. Let me see here. Trying to get past all the meme ones here.
Bring on the memes.
There's one that just says cheese. That's it. Actually, you want a meme one? I will do a meme one. For McLean, okay? Where did the cow fucker storyline come from?
I can divulge on it, but I think the mystery surrounding the cow fucker is pretty funny. Like, I mean, this was it was something that somebody had come up with, and I wish I interacted with this group more, but it's just kind of been getting removed. But yeah, it was just like one of the funniest things that I'd ever heard of. I'm like, you know what, send it. Please go on ahead and let's see what happens from it. And boy, do I ever regret saying yes to that, because that is just sticking.
Oh, I remember when that happened, dude. That was so funny.
Now, all day long, Twitter in cities like Macau fucker.
It's just such a funny thing to retweet. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't read this all the way through yet. It's a long question, so we're just gonna read this together. You guys ready? All right. So it says, when are cops going to stop immediately shooting crims who take EMS or cops hostage to high-value suspects, i.e., your friends rob a bank / get class 2s taken away? You then take a cop hostage to break them out, and cops just shoot you on the spot without negotiating demands. I feel like crims should get the chance to at least try and break out those higher value suspects. It just feels like cops immediately shoot and don't give crims a chance. Very loaded question, but hey, they're venting their frustration. What do you guys think about that?
I'd like to tackle this.
Go ahead, hit it.
I think that this is stemming from the what we've been using over the last, I think, 3 weeks, where we're kind of calling them the kill shots during these hostage negotiations. It started with DPD, how that door was just wide open, and how somebody could just come in and with a hostage to the front of the entirety of the police station, and like, hey, I have a hostage, give me my guy back or something, right?
Yeah.
It started to, and I do regret that it had gone this way, because I had made that order on that first one. All right, no, we're not going to be negotiating in good faith with this anymore. This needs to end right this moment. And I think that tool is, I don't want to say being I think that tool has started to get overused more, and we have started to dial that back down, where we're going to let negotiations continue and allow command to make that split judgment on what does the city need right at this moment. Can we have another 45-minute scenario that we're going to have the entire police force be attached to? Because let's realize that the previous 45 minutes we were dealing with the apprehension of these suspects. They obviously, some of them got away, some of them were captured. And now we're resetting and restarting this scene. So we're now locking the entirety of the force to another 45 minutes of a scene like this. I think, though, that was the thought initially or originally. I think we're reducing the use of this now, because I'm not seeing it, or I'm not even making those calls anymore unless I absolutely feel necessary that it is made.
That's actually that's something I didn't really think about with that particular scenario, where you guys had just gotten done dealing with that same group, and then now you're dealing with it again a longer time. And it's something I think for criminals to think about too is like the whole idea of like the main character syndrome a little bit. It happens with everybody, and it happens with me. Like, that's something I've had to work on a lot, is like, not everyone's there to serve your your storyline, right? Sometimes you're there to serve other people's storylines, and I get the frustration of getting shot, like when you're trying to do a scenario and it's just like getting shot, because especially even on the cops side of things, they wouldn't be super stoked on getting shot. You know what I mean? Like immediately on like a robbery or something like that, or whatever.
Because it started from, there'd be 4 jailbreak attempts in a day with 4 different hostages. There'd be another one during processing at MRPD, and then another one at Pillbox, right? And I mean, hot take here. It gets to a point where obviously in city we have to value lives.
Yeah.
Cops have to value. It's a little power gamey, right? Or at least it can seem that way. So that's why we start to respond to it in that manner. Now, of course, we got to let the steam out of the pressure cooker now that it is. So we'll see how it is. It's an ebb and flow, right?
Well, I think the hard thing is like, I think where it gets into mistakes is when like there's an overgeneralization of the crims, right? Where it becomes like all crims are trying to do X, Y, and Z. That really happened with us, right? Like people would be surprised. They would always get like, cops would get really surprised when they'd find out we've never had a plan where we shoot cops. They just assumed that we did. And it was like, we literally have never planned to be like, oh, let's bring them to the spot. We'll shoot this. We'll shoot them here. And then boom, 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 boom. They were always like super surprised by that, because it's like, they think that we fit in that realm because we would do a lot of heists. And literally every single time it would just be like, no, we just spent the last like 4 hours before we did the heist planning this, and like, so it would just be like that, like a most outrageous like time of like RPing that all together. And I think when you get overgeneralized as a crim, you can feel that like immediately, and it just starts becoming like this thing of like, you're like, oh my god, like, so now you think that I'm not RPing, and now like you're not only the police, you're the RP police, like, and that for me is where I think I started to get really to that point of like really frustrated, like when that would happen, it would just get really, really frustrating. But I think on both sides, like then crims, they assume that cops are just being a badass cop, like, or like are being like a tryhard.
I don't think that. I would like to hope that that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a point to make, but I absolutely just lost it right there.
It's fine, because I want to get through a couple more questions. Then we're kind of like over time right now, so I know you guys probably got to get going and stuff.
You're all good, man.
Okay, cool. Then we'll go another 2 hours. Sounds good. I'm just kidding. You're like, whoa, back it up.
Man, there's a city to police.
I know, right? Okay, so we've got some questions as well on gangs. So here's kind of like the main one I've seen here. Again, I haven't read all the way through this, so it's going to be a surprise what's at the end of the question. But here we go. It could be just like, screw you, Nick. That's it. No, but here we go. So do you think cops are too easy on gangs, ? Should official gang status, which in reality would make them a well-known criminal organization, equate to less jail time or more? In my opinion, from being both in a gang and as a cop, I feel like the gangs slack off in their RP because the cops are so easy on them, which leads to problems for both sides. What do you all think?
That's an interesting question.
Big question.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything on that?
Well, gangs and cops shouldn't be friends, right? So like we in reality shouldn't be going easy on them just because they're official gang. It just comes back to like the time they get is for the crime they do. That's just kind of how I see it. Like I'm not going to go easy on a gang member for doing something just because he's a gang member. That doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I'm also not going to go harder on them because like the time's got to fit the crime as well.
Yeah, and they've got more access to much heavier machinery as well.
Do you feel like that's consistent across the board, police to FIB, or no?
I'd say yeah. Police and FIB, most definitely, most of the time we fall off the same like rule book and everything like that, right? A rule book, I mean like the way that we operate. When it comes to FIB, they have a little bit of a different way to operate and stuff like that.
I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna be honest, bro. From everything that I've seen, I think FIB kind of it's unclear what their rules are. Right? From our perspective, like we kind of know like cops can do this, cops can do that. From like an FIB perspective, it's like anything under the sun is possible. Like it just seems like that. In which kind of that like the FBI in real life kind of similar, right? I think it's something that is it's something that's scary when they come into town and they come into a situation. But I think it might just be me that's unclear. But it seems a little bit unclear, or the rules are unclear for me, where it's like, okay, how far can they go? When do they turn into cops? When do they not? When are they into like a deeper, like when are they connected to gangs? When are they not? When are they policing the gangs? When are they not? Like that's more of I guess the questions that rise up, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a rough question to answer because there is no solid answer to that, right?
Yeah.
Because of the way that the entire city flows, even PD, right? It's such a dynamic system, especially with FIB, right? Because most of their RP, Archer can speak a lot more in depth on it, but most of their RP does revolve around just interactions. Yeah,
it's kind of an interesting thing, though. I mean, you said, hey, FIB rolls up, you're scared, right?
Yeah.
Or anybody is scared.
Well,
Cop rolls up, there should be an element of fear there too.
Absolutely.
From the criminal standpoint. And maybe that haziness or fogginess with the FIB is kind of what's needed. It's like, oh shit, we got Eduardo on scene. Let's kind of get the fuck out of here, right? And I think that ambiguity serves a purpose as well. They, as Asionic's saying, they are support for PD. They're not a part of the department, and their book is unto their own. And we don't know how they operate, right? In city, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think at some points that could? I mean, this is getting to like some deeper stuff, but do you think at some points, is there enough checks and balances for something like that? Like, is there enough checks and balances for FIB? And is there enough checks and balances for PD and the decisions that they make?
FIB is a check and balance.
Yeah, FIB is a check and balance itself. On top of that, the main reason
how so on that? Sorry.
So the whole thing with FIB, right, is you have the people inside of it, but then you have Chris, right? Chris's main goal is to sit there and make sure the server's going in a proper way, right? So he'll come down and get on the HOD's ass, or some of the people that are on duty at that moment, and say, hey, probably shouldn't have done it like that. That's how you'll influence bad stuff to happen, right? And at that point, he's kind of being the check and balance for PD at that time, right? And then on top of that, the whole reason we've kept the DOJ, through its many ups and downs, is because it's a huge check and balance for PD, right? Police officer, does something really fucked up on a scene, that criminal takes it to court. Well, boom, there's a huge check and balance right there. That's when PD is held to full accountability. It's put in the spotlight. They fucked up. Now go fix it, right? And that's part of the reason we've kept it, right? Because Madison, as Amy Gray, she won't give it a fuck if PD messes up. She's more than willing to toss out fines, penalties, and everything else like that.
Yeah.
So on top of that, I do believe a aspect of that may apply to the FIB, but like I said, I haven't done FIB-RP, right?
Yeah.
And the haziness might be exactly what scares the hell out of the criminals, because there is no, okay, I can hold them to this certain guideline. That's FIB. I don't know what's coming next.
Yeah. I like the haziness if it's like, if it's like in character stuff. I don't like the haziness if it's like moderation. That's just my opinion. Like, I'm not super interested in like RPing out like a moderation scene. I'd rather just be contacted if something happened that I did wrong or whatever. Like as a gang or as someone else, like I'd just rather be like, oh, hey, bro, you're, shooting up these people and you didn't say anything. Let's talk about it, I don't know. That's more of like I guess for me, the line between there, the hard thing with having like a server owner in that role is separating the that moderation feel, like just knowing it's a server owner, right? Can you separate that moderation feel from the RP? And that's
100%, 100%. And the one thing that I like that Chris has done with the whole FIB, right, is let's say you're streaming, for instance, right? You do a major rule break and you mess up pretty bad on the scene, right?
Like I normally do.
I don't know about that. But let's say you go completely OOC mauled in the cells, you're screaming at cops, and then you get to DOC, you RDM 3 people, right? Or you're in Legion Square and you literally shoot up the entirety of it, right? And it's counted as VDM, right? Or RDM. That's on like a large scale issue, right? At that point, staff may step in. But when it comes to these smaller issues and stuff like that, where you may have RDM somebody or done something that kind of could be considered on the like very, very fine line of a rule break, but it could be handled in RP. From my personal perspective, this is what I've seen is that's kind of the way that the FIB is, right? They'll sit there and take it within RP, so it's not like, hey, midstream, you see a staff member pull up to you, hey, shut off your stream, mute your mic and everything like that.
Screaming fail RP or something.
Exactly. It's one of those things where like it'll come to bite you later on in RP, but it's not like a staff member flies up to you, tosses your red screen and goes, turn off your stream. We're going to talk real quick. And then you're like, well, here goes
my
all the
response
viewers,
would be,
right?
I'm not turning my screen off, but that's what I would say.
Exactly, right? And it's one of those things that I really like about it, right? Because then it's less staff intervention, and the less staff intervention, the more that RP flows. Because the second, a staff member gets involved in, an RDM scene that could potentially sprout out into a huge RP scene, it's shut down right there.
Yeah, I see that perspective for sure. Like where it's not a complete rule break sometimes, but it might just be an overall like vision of the server too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Sam, I feel like I cut you off a couple times. Yeah. If you want to go.
FIB could still be taken to court, right? Like Eduardo's been taken to court like I think 8 or 9 times and has lost like I think every single one of them except one.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had won one. Holy shit.
I believe he won one.
You're like, nor did I expect it. No, okay, yeah, makes sense. I think the court system, just trying to figure out like how that's going to be like a little bit easier to use is something that excites me because like representing ourselves instead of having to find like a lawyer and do this thing and do that thing, I think could be a really interesting dynamic and getting more people, not the ability to be like, oh, hey, you didn't technically see me on that robbery, so I'm going to do a whole court case, but more of the sense of like, hey, some of these bigger things, excessive force or excessive, that check and balance right there. The moment somebody like, gets like kind of like a couple day suspension for, putting excessive time on somebody, all the other cops are gonna be like, wait, that can happen? Like that's something that, would be really interesting.
I've been waiting to go to court, man. Nobody's been trying to take me. I think Swifty has a case on me, but it's still in the works.
I've tried multiple times and never got past, never. I got contacted back, but never got in contact again after that,
I think it's one of those things where I don't think the court system restricts you from self-representing. And it's just one of those things that, nobody's really touched the land on, so nobody's really tried, right? Because as soon as that first person breaks the ice, then, you'll start to have more and more people fall in line.
Yeah.
With doing that same practice. So who knows? There might be, the first person to actually take PD by themselves, not a lawyer or anything like that, self-represent and be the first person to, walk through that RP open gateway that's just waiting for somebody to do it.
Yeah. It's dope. Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else here that, I agree with this question, by the way, why I won't Hank stream anymore. I'm pretty mad about that.
Been trying to get him to do it.
I assure you, I will begin to stream again, guys. I promise.
Good deal. Good deal. I know for some people, it's like it's kind of stressful to do it while you're RPing. I've heard that before. But But
I mean, does
don't know.
anybody really want to watch me sit inside of MRPD for 3.5 hours?
They do. No.
Correction. It's not sitting inside MRPD. It's talking inside MRPD.
Well, the thing is, dude. The thing is, they do actually, and I think that's like something to realize is like for people streaming and starting to like go down that journey is like you are like and especially like for someone like you, Hank, is like you are the entertainment. So you could literally be playing Slither IO for like a few hours, and it would be very entertaining. And so it's something to think about where it's like, you know, even if you see like dips in viewership or whatever this is or that, people want to see what you're doing, and they want to see the city from your perspective. And so it's something that, yes, they do want to see it, even when you're doing meetings or doing whatever. Some of it, you know, might be because they want to see what they can meta and all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of it is just the personality that you bring to the table.
Well, I appreciate your kind words, and I promise you I will begin to stream.
Good, man. I want to see it. That was selfish of me because I want to see you stream, but you know, it's totally up to you.
I'm not gonna lie, Wombat. I miss talking to you on stream.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. I think we've covered a lot here, and I think we've covered a lot of like where some of these questions are going. Sorry if we didn't get to your guys' question. If there's something that you really feel like, man, I need this answered, is there a way for them to go about that with you guys? I don't want to like just get people to start DMing you or some stupid thing, but is there something that would you guys be open to, like, I don't know, like a question in some kind of form, or no?
That is one thing that we did not think about at all.
No worries if not. What I can do too is I can like send these questions over to you guys too, like and like have you guys look through them or something like that. And if there's ones that I don't know, maybe if we do some or something. But
how do you guys feel?
I would love to see the list of questions that we didn't go through, just to get an overall gauge of things.
Cool. Yeah, I can send over to you.
You know, perspective is always important in my opinion.
Yeah,
because I don't, you know, us as HOD don't want to be making in-city and out-of-city decisions. There might be counterintuitive because we don't have the full picture of everything.
Yeah, actually, there is one more I want to ask. It's kind of a fun one, so it's just like the last one though, but it'll be a fun one to finish off on. Who's your favorite PMA villain or like criminal or whatever? So like, who's some of your guys' favorite criminals in the city?
This can be, you know, kind of, you know, towards you, right? My favorite criminal to actually go up against, because I had that opportunity to find out about their corruption and everything that was surrounding their character, was probably Rick Marshall. And actually going against Rick Marshall and having the brief interactions where I'd sit there and, you know, drop subtle hints towards your corruption during the mayor campaign.
Yeah,
that was my personal one, because it was an intermingle of Civ RP and Cop RP and Investigation RP, because I had cops looking in depth on what you were doing, and on top of that, you know, actually getting to go against you in character and drop those subtle hints.
It's badass. That's cool. And your diss track was great too. So,
What
do you think, Samo?
I like Ferry Bowman. I think it's a great character.
It's one of my favorites. Hank, what do you think, bro?
It's a difficult one, because I mean there'll be days that I love interacting with a criminal, and then the next day I'll hate him. Yeah, but I mean my favorite criminal that I love to hate is always and forever gonna be Tommy V.
Oh yeah.
I hate that guy with a passion, but I love that guy with a passion as well. Oh, actually, and there's a new one also. There's this defense attorney, that ambulance chasing scumbag.
Wait, who is it?
I don't want to say his name because I don't want to like you know, get him like inundated with messages and stuff. He's just a dude that's playing a defense attorney, and just like him and McClane they just butt heads.
Okay, all right. I think my favorite, I would say is Ferry Bowman. Him and I have had so many good scenarios on different characters and stuff like that. I know people have a lot of opinions on Russians and like on the Russians in general and stuff like that. But just RP wise, like he's been one of my favorites. Tommy V's definitely up there though for me for sure. There's a lot of really, really great. There's a lot of people who don't get a lot of credit as well.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
A lot of people don't get a lot of credit because those are some pretty popular ones. But yeah, I've had a really, honestly, GSF I have had really good like interactions with recently, like so good, like ridiculously good ones. And so I think that whole like I've brought characters to them like Robotron that they just like grabbed onto and like made it a thing, and it would not have been a thing at all if they didn't.
By the way, Robotron and his I have never had my ankles melted so hard than by that one. I don't remember what it was, but your like freeway transition. I'm like, oh my god, okay, this guy just destroyed my life.
Yeah, he downloaded the getaway driving.
Yeah,
It's definitely not meta from the Nick Ender character in any way, shape, or form. It was just like,
no, absolutely not.
Just a downloading of a file. So it's good. But good deal, boys. Well, I appreciate you guys. I honestly like. I would love to have conversations like this, especially like with the whole cop side of things, pretty consistently. So we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad to get some of the PD perspective out there, and have people see stuff and hear our opinions on how we want to sit there and move the.
Well, I think it's something that, like, what I realized even with doing this with like Chris and Ghost is putting like a bit of humanity to these like characters that people run into, especially like the cop to crim ideas, putting a little bit of humanity behind these things and realizing like why some of these decisions, like like maybe like when I saw like what an actual chase and like what the comms look like and all that kind of stuff, and how like it's so focused on like so much of that, and then like to also focus on the overall RP scenario is just a very difficult thing to do. I think these conversations bring up those ideas for people and like start to say like, oh shoot, like it's actually like that they're navigating so many things that maybe I got a little bit dunked on here, or this was overlooked or whatever. And on both sides there's things to talk about. So I think next week we're bringing on some kind of like more crims side of things. So it'll be kind of a fun just seeing both sides. So appreciate you boys. We'll see you next time.
Nice.
Alrighty.
Thank you for having us.
See ya.
Stick out the cop character, bro.
Oh yeah, bro.
Like
no, yeah. I
yeah.
think I'm gonna go play some more cop after this. So I'll be.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, man. So you can find me at this exact location. Also, here's some more meta for you. Okay, bye.
Am I
Writing it down. Got you. See you in city.